last few weeks when you've seen great corporate brands like Bud Light and Oil of Olay and Tampax embracing Dylan Mulvaney as their spokesperson? Nike even did it. Do you ever wonder to yourself, what in God's name are they thinking? That can't be good for business. Well, you're probably right. It might not have much to do with business in terms of actually selling product. There may be something larger at play here. It has less to do with LGBTQ and more to do with CEI and ESG. A-okay? GTFOH. Let's figure all of these letters out with Derek Kreifels. He is the CEO of the State Financial Officers Foundation. And I'm very interested in what the state financial officers are actually doing about this because I think they might make a difference. But before we get there, first of all, thanks for joining us tonight.
Larry, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
And let's explain what some of these things are. ESG, we've discussed it in the past on this show. That's environmental, social governance. This sounds like it's coming out of communist China. This is one of these social credits that a company can earn by jumping through left-wing hoops?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's be really frank and direct. It is coming from communist China. Its origins are at the United Nations and in Europe, and we know that that a lot of the ESG initiatives that are in place today that are being pushed by companies like BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, they are these companies are desiring to do more retail business in China, and we know that this initiative, frankly, puts the United States in a weakened position against the nation of China, the CCP, by making sure that we're, protecting environmental standards, by reducing the amount of coal-fired power plants we have, all while China is building a new one every 10 days. And so there's just ESG is full of hypocrisy. And we're seeing this latest example with Bud Light as another, the CEI, the Corporate Equity Index, is just another cog in the wheel of environmental, social governance investing.
So,
and our folks, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, the Corporate Equality Index, this is something that's started by Human Rights Campaign, which is a very powerful left-wing LGBTQ rights advocacy group here in Washington, D.C. It's a lobbying group, basically. And hypothetically, talk me through how this works. They approach Anheuser-Busch and they say, listen, Budweiser, you guys have a bad rep. Bud Light is just seen as something for, straight white old dudes. You got to do something to increase your corporate equality index. So they say, fine, we'll give it to this Dylan Mulvaney thing, and that'll help put them on the right side of Human Rights Campaign. But it doesn't sell beer, right? I mean, Bud Light is, the reason why there's nothing but a bunch of old white dudes drinking light beer is because that's what light beer was designed for. It's a product meant for straight white dudes. So how does that help Budweiser? What do they get out of it? Why are they so afraid of Human Rights Campaign and the CEI index?
Yeah, well, ultimately it doesn't help Anheuser-Busch, right? It actually violates their fiduciary duty to shareholders. When a publicly traded company like Anheuser-Busch starts to get involved in an extremist political position, and it could be a political position on either side of the aisle, whether it's a liberal principle or conservative principle, you start violating shareholder responsibility, or you're racing to get a higher CEI index score. You're starting to lose profit, and the backlash for Bud Light has been severe. I just saw that John Rich was another country music artist that owns a bar downtown Nashville, and nobody's buying Bud Light anymore at his bar, so he's getting rid of all the cases of Bud Light that he had in the back.
Wow.
And that's continuing to happen. And so again, whether the motivation of the marketing team of Bud Light was to improve their CEI score or to cash in on Dylan Mulvaney's popularity and status on social media, the results are that they're violating their fiduciary duty to shareholders, and that's serious when it comes to the state financial officers who potentially invest in Anheuser-Busch in their pension funds and in other retirement investment accounts.
I do. I'm going to get to the state financial officers in a moment because I think that's a powerful pushback. But I just want to play it out hypothetically. What if Anheuser-Busch turns back to Human Rights Campaign and says, we don't care about your consumer equality index. We're here to sell beer. We know who buys our beer. We know what works. We've been doing this for decades. And by doing that, it's going to poison our brand. So no, thank you for your advice, but we're going to go our way. What are the repercussions? What can this Human Rights Campaign, what can they do to them because they don't have a good CEI score?
Well, certainly they get activated, the very loud minority of the extremists on the left who want to drive this, agenda, this political agenda at every level of American society.
I see.
Imagine another beer company that wanted, let's call it Freedom Beer, and they wanted to, endorse the Second Amendment and Second Amendment right. It would have the same backlash with the left, right? And frankly, again, at the end of the day, from our perspective, that would still be violating the company's fiduciary responsibility to shareholders because they're not a political agency. They're not supposed to be a wing of the Democratic Party or the progressive movement. They're supposed to be a beer company.
Right.
And if I'm an investor that has invested my hard-earned dollars into their publicly traded company, my expectations are that they're going to bring the best return possible and make decisions based on that and not based on some political activist agenda.
That's a great point. It's also, by the way, a great opportunity to let everybody know that this segment of O'Connor Tonight is brought to you by Freedom Beer here on the Salem News Channel. Enjoy your Freedom Beer. Pull yourself a proper pint of Freedom Beer. Okay, moving on. State Financial Officers Foundation, of which you are the CEO, they're actually quite focused on this because they are responsible for investing a whole lot of state funds in some of these companies, and they're saying, oh, you're not actually doing your job here. So how can they push back? How can they actually make a difference?
Yeah, so we represent 28 states, 35 state officials from 28 states. And together, all of our states represent just under $3 trillion worth of public monies. That's pension dollars, banking contracts, debt management contracts. And what the men and women that make up our organization are simply saying is that fiduciary rule is absolutely key in all of our public investment and pension dollars. I mean, let's face it, if we have fund managers that are actively investing retirees' money to advance a leftist political social agenda, that could be the difference between a retiree getting to retire at age 65 or have to wait till they're 66 or 67. We're talking about people's lives here and about their retirement money that they've been working hard to have ready and available for them at the end of the day. That's why we've had 8 states divest almost $5 billion from BlackRock. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, and BlackRock are some of the biggest offenders of the ESG charade, the scam, and we're calling him out on it. We saw that he backed off on his shareholder letter this year, didn't mention ESG. So he's feeling the heat, and we're going to keep putting the pressure on.
And the insidious thing about this, we only have about 30 seconds left, is but these big investment firms, these handful of people on these corporate boards, they're able to actually enact de facto policies through these major corporations without ever having to pass one bit of legislation, without having to cast one vote. They just say, well, we're going to do this now. This is the direction we're going to go. And we, the people, don't have a say.
That's right. Those 3 companies that I mentioned, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, own about 20% of the top 500 publicly traded companies. So during this shareholder season that we're watching very closely, we're watching how the proxy voting services and these fund managers vote these state proxies.
Okay.
We saw last year 3 pro-life abortion proposals for publicly traded companies to provide abortion rights. Something that they also are doing under the umbrella of ESG. And so we're very concerned that they're leveraging this now as kind of this new branch of government. They know they can't get it passed in the courts, and they know they can't get these issues passed in Congress.
Well, keep up the good work and let the state financial officers know that we're on their side and we appreciate it. By the way, there is a Freedom Brewery. It's located in England, believe it or not. They don't know about Freedom over there. So I'm thinking, Derek, you and I, we can get together on this. We can start our own microbrewery here, and we'll make a mint here with Freedom Beer on O'Connor Tonight.